So if you've been following me along in my Final Fantasy XIV journey, you know that I have been completing some of the tasks after the main A Realm Reborn story. And one of said tasks has been the 24-man Alliance raid in the Crystal Tower, which is something that a lot of members of the community have been very excited to play with me. But then also I was excited to see what a larger group contingent of players would be faced with in that particular instance. And let me just tell you, I was absolutely baffled by how much I loved this progression and this particular raid and why it's kind of reinvigorated my love for MMOs. So let me go ahead and explain. So I played World of Warcraft for a number of years. I want to say it was like 12 or 13 years consistent. And for the most part in that time, I played as a warrior tank, a main tank for my guild. And we did heroic progression and then mythic progression once that came out. And it was a lot of fun. The idea of working on a boss and essentially chipping them down and learning the mechanics of a fight and progressively getting easier and better, that was what was fun to me. That was something that I personally enjoyed, and that's what always kept me going. I would log in faithfully for my raid nights it was usually Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday was my raid times. And I loved it. I had a great time. And then, of course, with the name of Caffeinated Dad, you can imagine, I became a father, and I was far less reliable of showing up on time for a raid and progressing that way. I couldn't make that commitment because I had obviously other commitments. Now enter in the Crystal Tower and the Final Fantasy XIV raid. Now, I've already gone in extent and talked about how much I love dungeons, how much I loved actually just logging in, doing some dungeons for Final Fantasy, and then just progressing my way through. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a great time. And I've done some trials, 8-man trials, but nothing as large as a 24 Alliance raid. And let me tell you, I missed it, guys. I did. I put that aside from what I used to do and what I loved as far as my experiences in MMOs, that essentially I avoided it because I didn't feel that I was going to have the time commitment or the capabilities of actually playing through and progressing, I should say. And actually last night during my stream, I went ahead and got through the first 2 sections of the Crystal Towers raid, and it was incredible. I mean, granted, my experience might be a little bit different because I had essentially a small legion of people who were ready to jump in and join me and play with me, which is great, and I'm happy that they're there. It was very exciting for me to have that challenge. And now I had mentioned this when I did the Coils of Bahamut, that I missed the challenge of raiding. I missed the challenge of difficult content. So for the Crystal Towers, I decided that we were going to do minimum item level. Let's actually make it as difficult as possible that we can for this particular Alliance raid. And it was fantastic. I tanked as a warrior, and I felt like I was made of warm butter, and everything was a hot steel knife. Like, I was getting absolutely decimated, and it was great because I was able to almost reinvigorate that love, that feel of what an MMORPG does great, which is the end game. And of course, that was something that I loved from World of Warcraft. You journey all the way to max level, you get the appropriate gear, and then you and your squad go to take down a large enemy or a boss or what have you. That to me was absolutely amazing. Now, none of the gear in there actually mattered to me. All the gear I have currently is slightly better than that, so there's no point in really me doing it aside from doing it for the MSQ. But what the best part was is that everyone who was in there, who was doing it with me for minimum item level, was just as excited to do this old content. Mind you, this is like, I think 2.3 or something. You know, this is considered old content, but there was still a way that we could invigorate that excitement of a good old-fashioned raid. Now, this is something that I really think that Final Fantasy has been showing me that they do right, and it gives me hope moving forward as far as what is to come. So the Alliance raid has been a lot of fun, but I also know that there are harder levels of content as we move forward. So we have, of course, Trials, we have Savages, we have Ultimates, we have all these different scaling difficulties down the line. This is why I've been also very, almost ecstatic of getting back into the raiding mentality or the large group content mentality of Final Fantasy XIV in their community. Galactic, who is essentially my MS curator, I think that's the name that they're going with now, has been essentially giving me the information I need to understand what to expect and what's going to come down the line without spoiling anything. And I am thoroughly excited to have this capability, to have this content coming down the road that I'll be able to jump in and try and play. I really have to say that it has been an amazing experience, almost rekindling that flame. One of the reasons that I fell in love with MMOs was specifically that we all showed up at the end to fight the large boss, and each one of us brings a unique experience, or a unique class is really what usually got me, or a unique job. And then we all come together and we take down a big bad. And it was almost like that sense of heroism that really invigorated my love for MMOs. That's why I played World of Warcraft for so long, is because I was so addicted to the raiding aspect. I probably won't be able to commit to the same level that I would with for Final Fantasy XIV, where I'm on a essential static raid group where I'm constantly progressing. So ultimates may be out of the question, but it is exciting to me to see the content that is available and to see that there are still players who have been playing this game for a very long time and they're still excited to come back. One of the things that I noted in my initial, we'll say 10, 15 hours of Final Fantasy XIV was that it was incredibly easy. Everything was a cakewalk. Even some of the dungeons, Aurum Vale, was fairly easy. It really wasn't all that difficult. And now that I've gotten a taste of minimum item level for the Alliance raid, it has given me a certain level of excitement moving forward. I like a good challenge. I like a challenge that we can't beat it necessarily on the first 1 or 2 tries, but within 3 or 4, we can probably get that boss down. And that type of progression is addicting to me. And that's something that I have to be very mindful of, because that is what caught me up with World of Warcraft for so long, is I was addicted to the raiding. I was addicted to parsing. I was addicted to the progression, and essentially I loved being the tank and being the main, like we'll say, the leader of this group. Is that the case currently as me being a sprout leading the raid? Kinda. But the idea of it is that it brings a certain level of excitement and a certain level of community growth. All today, my Discord members have been talking about how much fun it was to go back and to do it at minimum item level, which minimum item level essentially makes it as hard as it possibly can for that particular piece of content. Now, from what I can tell, it wasn't as difficult as, we'll say, the Coils of Bahamut, but it was still a lot of fun. And there was a lot of people who were just excited to play. And that is something that I had forgotten for a long time with MMOs in general, but Final Fantasy XIV has really kind of reinvigorated that. And I guess I was a little, we'll say, tempered, wink, with Guild Wars 2 is because a lot of the stuff I did with Guild Wars 2, I didn't necessarily even group up. Most of the open world stuff I just kind of did on my own. And then if I was joining a fractal, I could join in. I didn't have to say a word really to anyone and do my thing. Even with like the raids or even with the strike missions, like there really wasn't too much of a crazy amount of communication with a community or with a group of players. I could just essentially just do my thing and then step out. And that's something that I have really been happy with what Final Fantasy has done. It is really cool to see that there are these extensions of endgame content. Even if it only appeals to a small percentage of the actual population of a game, there is something for everyone, which I think is kind of why MMORPGs work. You know, there's players who really enjoy that, pushing that end game content, but then there's people who just like to RP and play through the game. Or there's the whole fashion side or the glamour side of Final Fantasy XIV. Or there's just the people who enjoy PvP. I mean, there's so many different aspects that you can enjoy in this game. And I thoroughly enjoyed just being there. You know, that's the easiest way to put it, is just being able to be there with a community of people, be there with a group of people to take down a boss and progress on him and wipe once or twice and then be like, oh, okay, that's what I have to do, and learn from there. That's something that I missed. And looking forward to all the different varying, we'll say, levels of content that are coming up that are going to be available in Final Fantasy XIV, or at least in my playthrough. Let me put it this way. At least in my playthrough, I'm excited. Final Fantasy XIV has really reinvigorated my love for that good old-fashioned MMORPG. And I will be finishing up the Crystal Towers here soon. I'll finish the 3rd wing and then progress with the rest of the MSQ, because the Crystal Towers are essentially the last thing I need to do before I can really jump into Heaven's Word after getting everything done that I needed to. I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this journey goes, and I'm excited for the difficulty of content. I love a challenge. Within reason, we'll say nowadays. But if you guys do want to catch up on the stream, if you did happen to miss it, you can check this video here. This is the entire live stream of my event, of me doing the Crystal Towers for the first time, and going through there. I do also stream on Mondays and Fridays at 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard. You guys can catch me live here on YouTube. Aside from that, stay caffeinated, folks.